I didn't expect much from this MCU show, but after 2 episodes, I was fully locked in. And what surprised me immediately was how fast Simon's life was falling apart. Like, we see him get fired from his role on American Horror Story, and the moment he gets home, his girlfriend is moving out, like effectively ending their relationship. And this is where we get to see that Simon isn't just losing his life, he's losing control. And right after she walks out, we get our first look at him not being able to control his powers. But Simon's powers aren't the only thing that he can't control, because right after his life hits rock bottom, a ghost from the MCU's past walks through the door and we meet Trevor.
I played the Mandarin, but that was over bloody 10 years ago and I was just a puppet.
Who we all know as the Mandarin from Iron Man 3. And man, let me tell you, I loved him in this show, but there's a catch. We find out Trevor is actually working for damage control. Like, he isn't there to mentor Simon. He's there because it's either snitch on the superpowered guy or go back to prison for everything he did in Iron Man 3. And Trevor and Simon's bromance is set up from day one, but Simon has no idea he's being watched, and he's just trying to get his career back on track, which leads him to an audition for a movie, and you're not gonna believe this. It's called Wonder Man. It's a movie and it's side of a TV show with the same name as the TV show, which I thought was pretty cool. But it's also where the lie starts to get dangerous, because Simon has never had a real friend, and he treats Trevor like a mentor, which unfortunately makes him the perfect target for someone like Damage Control. And along with it getting more dangerous, the stakes actually start to get real when Damage Control hands Trevor a new device he has to plant on Simon's computer.
I want you to wear this. When you enter his place, find his computer and place this right on top, and I'll handle the rest remotely.
But Simon doesn't want to work from home, so he takes Trevor to a self-tape studio, and this is also when the show starts to get pretty complicated, because as they're bouncing back and forth and defending each other against outsiders, you realize they're actually becoming friends. And I like this dynamic so much that it really did carry the show for me, and I probably would not have liked it as much as I did if their push and pull wasn't so good. And Simon really starts to look at Trevor for advice. Like, Simon has never really had friends or been able to grow close to people before because of his powers and him always keeping that a secret. So when we actually see him and Trevor start to grow closer, Trevor distracting Simon from the chip on the computer, which is taking all of his info, it hits the audience a lot harder than you would first expect, because up to this point you kind of forget that Trevor is on an undercover operation. So we as viewers see the snake, but Simon just sees a mentor. And that's what makes Simon's next move so wild, because while Trevor is playing spy, Simon is actually starting to trust him, like to the point where he actually invites Trevor to his mom's birthday party. And this birthday party proves everything I suspected, and this is also where I stopped fully trusting Trevor. Even though the chemistry between him and Simon is still great, you start to see the cracks. And this back and forth in the living room is easily one of the best parts of the show, but it's also where Trevor's mission gets pretty messy, because Trevor starts asking way too many questions like,
Top 5 memories of Simon's childhood, whatever comes to mind.
Excuse me.
you can't make it up. But it's also uncomfortable once you realize why he's there. He didn't actually want to go there to be with his friend or go meet his family. He went there to just get information on him. And you can tell Trevor clearly doesn't want to be doing this, but he doesn't really have a choice. Either he plays along or he loses his own freedom. It really lands when Simon's mom tells Trevor that Simon never had any friends growing up and how much she appreciates him being there for him. And this is where it stops feeling like a job and starts feeling personal for Trevor. There for a moment, his morals actually win. He destroys the SIM card from the wire he was wearing, even though you can't help but notice that the footage was already backed up or uploaded somewhere else. But in a quiet one-on-one right after this, Simon brings up a name that really changes everything. And he mentions the doorman.
What are you talking about?
Because of DeMar Doorman Davis.
Sorry, who's DeMar Doorman Davis?
Older superhero who was also an actor. But I'm not gonna lie, this episode slows everything down to tell his story, but you need to pay attention because this is Simon's future if he gets caught. And we see Doorman gets his powers after touching some kind of strange goo, letting him use his body as a literal doorway, which is pretty ironic because he literally worked as a doorman for a nightclub. I don't know if that had something to do with why that's his power, but if you know anything about this guy or his powers, let me know down below because I have zero idea. Anyways, during a stunt on set, something goes horribly wrong and the actor going through him never comes back. Like, it's very haunting. This guy just vanishes into thin air and the doorman is left carrying that guilt while the industry turns on him. And this disappearance leads to the creation of the Damar Doorman clause, which bans powered individuals from acting in any major films. And suddenly Simon hiding his powers isn't just personal fear, it's career survival. And I'm not gonna call this episode fully filler because it does matter, but I did catch myself checking how much time was left because it takes up the entire episode and you can really feel the pacing shift. But now that that history lesson is out of the way, we pick up with Simon and Trevor celebrating because both of them got callbacks for the lead role in the Wonder Man movie. And this is a huge win, but that high doesn't last for long because right after this, we get our first real look at Simon using his powers in public and he instantly regrets it because a kid with the GoPro catches the whole thing on camera.
You think he's
I don't know.
He's wearing a camera?
Maybe he just got here.
I don't think so.
Well, he's not doing anything.
And blackmails Simon, telling him he has to steal his motorcycle back for him or the video gets automatically uploaded. But honestly, this leads to one of my favorite parts of the show because they end up at some random house that's basically a homemade candy shop and the back and forth is incredible. You get this random dude's hyper energy, Trevor's perfect comedic timing, and Simon's pure annoyance just waiting to get out of there. And this scene is complete chaos, but the writing is so sharp it's still easy to follow. And I really appreciated how well this show handled this. Even though it was the shortest episode of the season, it managed to be one of the most fun. And 95% of you guys aren't subscribed already, so if you're enjoying this video so far, consider dropping a sub. But moving right into episode 6, we trade the candy shop chaos for a total vibe shift. We pick up at Von Kovac's house for the callback because the date got changed in the middle of all of that drama and Simon and Trevor show up with absolutely zero energy. And there's this hilarious moment outside the house where they can't decide if they should wear shoes or not.
If it's a shoes off house, there'd be a whole line of shoes. If it's a shoes on house, there'd be none.
So they panic and one wears them while the other doesn't, and this scene really cracked me up and the show is filled with little moments like this that just something for me, and that comedic relief in this show was perfect and not overdone by any means. But then we get to the actual audition and there's a cool scene where all the actors are kind of just getting a prompt from Kovac and two of them go up and perform together. But when Simon performs, the subtext hits differently. It feels like massive foreshadowing for the fact that Trevor has been disingenuous this entire time. And if you're paying attention, the show is dropping tons of hints like this everywhere and they're not subtle either. And it all leads up to a one-on-one scene between Simon and Trevor that hits every single beat. Simon is exhausted and he tells Trevor he feels like he's losing himself and he wants to quit. He tells him he can't show what's underneath like Kovac wants because his powers will ruin it for him. He won't be able to act again. He'll end up just like Doorman. But Trevor stops him and says,
The real you is the sum of everything you've experienced.
And I loved this scene. It's the emotional peak of the relationship and they finally fully trust each other. So when we pick up with Trevor and Simon finally getting into their outfits on the set of Wonder Man, the chemistry here is honestly incredible. And someone in the show actually points out the bromance between them.
I used to know this bloke when he didn't have a room to self-tape in.
I know. We're all aware of the little bromance between you two.
Big.
Which I loved. It was like the writers nodding at us saying, yeah, you're not crazy. These two are close now. But the show just keeps twisting the knife with the foreshadowing. Simon says something like, I trust Trevor with everything.
Nah, I trust Trevor on this. On everything, actually.
While we're just sitting there watching Trevor's undercover op play out in the background, and they lean so hard into these themes of trust and being liked that it creates this constant nagging feeling of uncertainty. And the way this episode is structured is brilliant. Simon is so paranoid that everyone else is going to backstab him, like his ex-girlfriend, his mom, his brother. He's looking in every direction except the one that actually matters, and he never expects the betrayal to come from the one person he actually let in. So when Simon finally confronts Trevor about the rumors of his arrest and asks if he's actually made a deal with the government, Trevor actually comes clean. He admits he was working with damage control and you can see the soul leave Simon's body. He calls Trevor a coward and this fallout is immediate. Simon stumbles into an empty warehouse on the set and just loses it. He already has a history of not being able to control his powers, so when he finds this out, he can't control it anymore. He lets out a massive blast of energy, and since nobody knows about his powers apart apart from Trevor and the suspicions of Damage Control, everyone just assumes it was a bomb. So Damage Control is on their way to arrest Simon because at this point they think they got their guy. They think they know who blew up the warehouse. But what is going on? Trevor does a bait and switch where he became the Mandarin again to save Simon. Like, he suits back up as the terrorist just to cover up the explosion on the set so Simon doesn't get arrested by Damage Control. It's really tragic, but it makes total sense. Like, Trevor grew a genuine friendship with Simon after the huge falling out. He knew Simon's emotions and his powers were spiraling out of control, and Trevor felt fully responsible. So he took the ultimate fall to protect Simon. And the last thing he tells Simon is,
Promise me you'll live your life to the fullest. Savor every moment, Simon. This movie's your show. Bloody well enjoy it.
and honestly, this was the perfect full circle moment for Trevor Slattery as a character. And I was glad to see the show didn't just leave us on a down note for long, because then we jumped to the premiere of the Wonder Man movie and he actually did it. He got the role he and his dad shared a love for and the thing he's worked for half his life to achieve. But after this major accomplishment, Simon doesn't forget Trevor, and he isn't going to let Trevor rot in that cell for long. So he starts working on a plan. And this is where the show gets clever. We get a little time jump that's honestly a bit confusing at first, because Simon is at a bar saying he's studying for a new role, making friends with a dude named Chuck, who just so happens to work at the exact prison where Trevor is being held. And I'm not gonna lie, this dude Simon really played the long game here. He stays with Chuck and plays this persona long enough to convince him to take him on a training day at his job, and with Chuck's help, he infiltrates the prison unnoticed as just a normal trainee, right up until the moment he stops acting and rips Trevor's cell door off. And the scene that follows shows us a Simon who is finally in full control of his powers, and he's no longer that emotionally unstable guy that we saw before. It shows he's finally accepted that he can't control everything. He's not stressed about his acting career anymore because he already completed that goal, and now he's switching to focus on mastering his powers.
I'm not just gonna leave you in here to rot, Trev.
They'll catch you.
Let me worry about that.
And I'm 100% here for it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm honestly sitting here wondering, was this actually an MCU show? Because I went into Wonder Man expecting absolutely nothing. Like, I didn't even watch the trailer, and now I'm left wondering why Marvel didn't promote this more. Like, it's easily the best project since Loki, and it's a huge L for Marvel's marketing team, but a massive W for the creative side, because this show felt like a risk that actually paid off, even though I heard they didn't originally plan on making this. And honestly, it feels more intentional than half the stuff we gotten lately. And I need to know, did this show change your mind about where the MCU is headed, or is this just another one-off fluke? Drop a comment and let me know. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious and keep the conversation going.